investigation.
Assistance and others, and I'm happy to go into more of our team and questions. If you're not familiar with the National Transportation Safety Board, we're an independent federal agency that's charged by Congress with investigating every civil aviation accident in the United States and significant events in other modes of transportation, including rail and highway crashes. Our mission is to determine what happened, why it happened, to prevent reoccurrence of that incident in the future. Before I go on, I do want to say on behalf of the National Transportation Safety Board to the families of those who lost loved ones in this tragedy, we extend our deepest condolences, and the survivors who continue to face challenges over the next several months or years, whether it's physical or mental pain and anguish, we will think of you in the weeks, days, and months to come. At 12:43 p.m. local time yesterday, June 27th, Amtrak Train 4 was traveling east on the Southwest Chief, which is their long-distance line from Los Angeles to Chicago. At the same time, a truck that is owned and operated by MS Contracting, LLC, based in Brookfield, Missouri, was transporting aggregate to an Army Corps of Engineers project just north of the crossing. The truck traversed the crossing and came into the path of Amtrak Train 4. The train struck the back part of the truck, and then the train derailed. The train consisted of 2 locomotives, 6 coach cars, a cafe car, and a baggage car, and again, all derailed. This is our first full day on scene, so we are gathering a lot of information at this time, and I'm going to give you an idea of some of that information. First of all, we're downloading the event recorder. That event recorder is going to give us information on when the locomotive engineer blew the horn. It's going to give us information on the speed of the train. In this area, the speed limit is 90 miles per hour. It's going to give us information on the brake application, whether it was full service brake application or emergency braking. We're also downloading the 2 forward-facing cameras. There was not an inward-facing camera, but there are 2 forward-facing cameras. There's also an electronic control module on the truck, the road vehicle, that we're going to want to take and look at, see if it's damaged, and see if we can download similar information from that vehicle. We're downloading data from the wayside and signal systems, and we began interviews of the crew. There were 12 crew members on board the train, so we do want to talk with them, and that is continuing as we have this press conference. In addition, we have 2 members from our Transportation Disaster Assistance Team that is working with the families. Victims were transported to 10 different hospitals, so our disaster assistance team will go to the hospitals and meet with survivors and families of victims. They will also go to the Family Assistance Center in Columbia and work with the Red Cross. We'll then have an organizational meeting tomorrow morning where we will determine what our next steps are. I know I'm going to get questions on the numbers of injuries and the number of fatalities. I've seen and heard a lot of numbers today, and I'm not comfortable with releasing any information unless I'm exact on that information. So I'm going to defer injury and fatality numbers to the medical examiner. I do want to take a moment and thank our safety partners and those who are working with us on this investigation. And those include BNSF Railway, Amtrak, the Federal Railroad Administration, the Missouri Department of Transportation, who I've spoke to today, Patrick McKenna was on scene, the Missouri State Highway Patrol, a number of local emergency responders that came when this tragedy occurred, and of course, as I mentioned, our tremendous partnership with American Red Cross. Thank you for all you do. I also want to take a moment. I have not had an opportunity to speak with the troop leaders, but I understand there were 2 Boy Scout troops with leaders on the train, Boy Scout Troop 73 and 12, based in Appleton, Wisconsin, and I understand that they were providing assistance after the accident, and so I do plan to reach out to those troops and thank them for those efforts. I do want to take a moment and talk about passive grade crossings. So this was a passive grade crossing. There are active crossings and passive crossings. What makes this a passive crossing is there was a stop sign and crossbucks. There were no arms, there were no warning lights, there were no bells. Those are active crossings. In the United States, there are about 130,000 passive crossings. It's about 50% of crossings in the U.S. In Missouri, there are 3,500 passive crossings. It's about half of their crossings as well. 53% of grade crossing incidents in Missouri occur at passive crossings. And so the NTSB has issued recommendations for a number of years on either closing crossings, consolidating crossings, separating grade crossings, and making grade crossings that are not separated or consolidated active crossings so that there are gates, bells, whistles to provide warning to drivers that approach crossings. In addition, we have recommended since 1998. In 1998, we did a study on passive grade crossings and technology, and we made recommendations on technology in roadway vehicles that could alert drivers of the presence of a train on approach to a grade crossing. We still don't see action on that. It's been 24 years, and that recommendation is still as important today as it was in 1998. Lives could be saved. And so with that, I'm going to take some questions. I do want folks, if you have a question, to raise your hand. I'll call on you. Please state your name and your affiliation. One question. If I have to come around for more rounds, I will do that.
Malik Jackson with Fox 4 News in Kansas City. Are you guys aware of the complaints that people in the city and the commissioners had about this particular crossing going all the way back to 2019?
The question is the NTSB aware of complaints about this crossing going back since to 2019? We will be aware. We have not been aware that there have been specific complaints about this crossing. However, today I did ask the Missouri DOT director if this crossing was one that was in a list of crossings that they wanted to upgrade. He did confirm that. For this crossing, I did ask how much it would cost to make this an active crossing, and the figures I was provided was about $400,000. But that is more information that we are going to seek from the state and others. Pete.
How upset are you, Chair Homendy, that these recommendations were out there, that NODOT was going to try and fix this crossing, and then did nothing? What's the emotion like there for you that these neighbors share? They wish something was done earlier. They know it was a problem.
Yeah, great question. The question is, what are my emotions on this? Am I angry with the state and others for not taking action on our recommendations or just on the crossing itself? And anytime our recommendations aren't heeded, of course I'm upset, because we see tragedy after tragedy after tragedy and numerous fatalities and injuries, and we know, and it's very frustrating for our investigators, very frustrating when they are on scene and they know what would have prevented this. But, you know, at the same time, my concern, especially when we arrive on scene, is for the families and just how tragic this is. I mean, I love travel by train. I love to ride Amtrak. I've ridden Amtrak on the Empire Builder and numerous lines. It is one of the safest forms of transportation is rail. And so it is so sad when a life is lost as a result of traveling a way that you love. So it's heartbreaking, and I really feel for the families. And then you.
Mark Slavitt with KRCG CBS affiliate for Columbia and Jefferson City. My question for you is, knowing what you know now, how confident are you that you will come up with the cause of the accident? And how long does it take before we know exactly how fast the train was traveling during the accident?
I'm hoping we'll be able to confirm the data on, the question was the speed of the train. And I'm hoping we'll have an answer for you on the speed the train was traveling tomorrow. I've been given some preliminary information, but I want to make sure the data is accurate. We want to make sure that the information that was put in on the size of the wheels produced the right information for the speed. And so we just want to confirm that. So I hope to have that to you tomorrow. And I'm sorry, what was the other question?
How confident are you how confident are you that you will come up with the cause of this accident?
Very confident. How confident am I on the cause of the accident? But, you know, when we look at the cause, we don't just look at the immediate contributing or causal factor, which in this case was a truck that went into the path of an Amtrak train. Right? A train can take up to a mile to stop. It's very difficult. And so what do you do in a situation where a vehicle goes right in front of a train as it's moving? I mean, the locomotive engineer reacted. And so, but there are other contributing factors in any accident that we will look at, including lack of vehicle technology, lack of grade crossing infrastructure, and other things that could prevent a future incident from occurring.
Sharon Chen, KCTV5 News. You talked about the speed of the train and also prevention, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of these uncontrolled crossings. We all know Amtrak travels a great deal faster than the freight train. Now, these trains, as fast as they go, they don't have seatbelts for the passengers. Is that something that the NTSB is going to look into and maybe push?
The question is on seatbelts for trains. We have actually looked at restraints in the past in our DuPont, Washington investigation, especially for children at the time. But certainly we have crashworthiness specialists that are on scene that will look at what occurred in the accident and how someone could survive an accident that would occur in the future. And that will be part of our investigation and what we report on in our final report.
Malik Jackson with Fox 4 News. So you said you've had the opportunity to talk to several of the crew members. What have you learned from them that you can share with us right now?
Yeah, the question is our interviews with crew members. That's not public information that we share right now. I personally have not been part of those discussions. Those interviews are ongoing. At some point, those interviews will be part of our public docket and available for public consumption. So.
You take two more questions.
Sir.
Mark Mid-Jordan, KBC TV out of Kansas City. $400,000, a lot of money to make that an active crossing. Who pays that cost? Who has to initiate that to make these passive crossings active crossings?
Yeah, the question is who is responsible for making this crossing an active crossing. In this case, this is a county road. And so there's a partnership between the county, the state for funding, and frankly, BNSF, because it's their railway. And so it really is the three entities working together that would be responsible for installing active warning devices at this crossing. All right. Well, thank you very much. Is there one more? Yes, sorry.
Andrea Quick, I'm with the Twin Cities Star. I was wondering if you could talk about if there's been any report of how recently the train has been examined, I guess, and if there's any suspicion.
The question is how recently the train had been inspected, and are we worried about equipment failure? We will request that information from Amtrak on the last inspection and what that inspection produced. I do not have concerns about mechanical failure about the train, any mechanical issues with the train. We do not have concerns about track. Our concerns are very focused on this grade crossing, the approach to the grade crossing, and survivability after an accident. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've been listening there to the chair of the NTSB updating us on Monday's Amtrak derailment. More than 200 passengers were on board, as well as a dozen crew members, when the train struck a truck that was on the tracks. What we're learning as the investigation gets underway is that this is what they describe as a passive crossing. A stop sign, but no gates, no arms, no bells, no warning whatsoever to someone on those tracks that a train is coming. The chair of the NTSB saying there that represents 50% of all train and road crossings in the United States, and in Missouri, it's where more than 53% of accidents take place. So, and we're only just over 24 hours from this incident happening, the NTSB will look into if that crossing needs to be upgraded to an active crossing. So it does have all of those warning signs we are familiar with. The chair saying there that would be a cost of $400,000 to upgrade. It would be a county and state effort, but it's early, just one early area of the investigation. The chair also saying that the speed limit in the area was 90 miles per hour. They're downloading as we speak the event data recorder, which will tell them when the brakes were initiated and when, if at all, the emergency horn was activated. There are 2 forward-facing cameras they will download as well, and interviews with survivors and staffers are underway, many of them at the 10 hospitals in the area, recovering from this devastating derailment which killed at least 4 people. So that's the latest information from the NTSB's investigation, which will continue for some time. We'll continue to gather more information for you. And in fact, I'll be back at 6 p.m. Eastern with Red and Blue tonight, including the latest on today's surprise hearing of the January 6th committee. For now, though, we'll take a breath and a short break. Stay with us. You're watching CBS News.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
It's gonna be big!
The metaverse, the virtual world that's become a cryptocurrency casino.
It's like buying property on Mars.
Do they get an actual picture of this? No, it's a digital copy. Why would they pay for that?
Making millionaires almost overnight.
We made more than $1 million in crypto last year.
I have